Hey there, happy Monday, happy November, and welcome to The Hash. I am Zach Seward. I am with some fine folks here. We got David Morris, Jen Sanasi, and Naomi Brockwell on the show today. Let's get you caught up on all the things happening in crypto and beyond. Naomi, you are opening the show today. Please take it away.
Absolutely. So a report has come out. It came out on Friday from the Bank for International Settlements. They wrote a paper that looked at CBDCs and their relationship with developing countries. And their findings in the paper said that although stablecoins may be adopted in some of these markets, they may also present wider challenges, have not been tested at a large scale. So the authors of the report, they also said in it, stablecoin arrangements aspire to improve financial inclusion and cross-border remittances, but they are neither necessary nor sufficient to meet these policy goals. So an interesting report there that kind of digs into CBDCs. I know we dig into them a lot on this show anyway. David, I'm going to throw this straight to you for your takes. What were your thoughts on the Bank of International Settlements findings?
Yeah, kind of limited. I feel like we might be missing some nuance there in the length of the report. But first, I would say it's interesting and not good that they lump stablecoins and CBDCs in together. Those are not the same thing. They are, in fact, not even particularly related. And it really does. I wonder what they mean. The part that I pegged to was they said that they are not, important alternatives to existing digital banking tools or something to that effect. And it makes me think they don't understand what they're talking about, because a stablecoin, as much as I am a critic of a lot of stablecoins in terms of their capitalization in particular, a stablecoin does definitely provide access that's standard, even like apps can't. I mean, it's so much easier to get access to those things and to use them. So I don't necessarily have a takeaway, except that I don't really understand their point, I guess. So that's where I'm at with this.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I had a very similar take, especially when they say that, the conflation between stablecoins and CBDCs was a big issue. But when they say that they're looking at central bank digital currencies to address weaknesses in their financial system, I mean, when people start bringing up questions like that, I have to ask, which weaknesses and how would CBDCs help this? Because CBDCs really, they're just a centralized internal ledger for these governments.
They're a replacement for SWIFT, and that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're talking about a lot of these developing countries, they have corrupt governments or whatever, and so maybe we could have CBDCs as a way to change the money supply or whatever. It's like you still have the underlying issue. It's all controlled by these central powers. How is it any different from the digital currencies that they may be issuing already? And when I say digital currencies, I mean that most of the transactions we do day to day are not in, tangible, physical, holdable assets. It's all ones and zeros of computers. So I often just ask the question, how is this CBDC going to be any different from the current system? But Zach, I'll throw it to you for your takes.
Yeah, I mean, we're also expecting, sometime soon, much more words on this out of the U.S. government. So I think the idea here that is interesting to me is that stablecoins are suddenly being taken much more seriously than they had been in the past, right? These are sort of a novelty that were being used by crypto traders to hold assets without exiting back to the traditional financial system. I think clearly right now we're seeing use cases starting to emerge where these are something that people use in their everyday lives, right? Whether it's sending remittances on the Stellar network with USDC, whether it's transacting with the Paxos stablecoin through the Novi wallet, by way of Facebook, right? All of a sudden, we're starting to see potential consumer applications around stablecoins and around earning interest on those stablecoin deposits starting to pick up steam. And as such, they're starting to attract far more scrutiny from regulators, both overseas and here in the US. So to me, this is another signal in that story. That's an emerging narrative that we're going to be watching closely. As stablecoins kind of grow up, they're going to face some tough questions from regulators who want to figure out whether A, they're systemically risky to the levers that they're able to pull as it relates to fiscal policy, and B, how do they comport with the existing financial regulatory structure? So that to me is what stands out here. But I'm very curious for your thoughts, Naomi. I'm going to toss it back to you.
I think Jen wanted to chime in.
Oh, Jen, I'll throw it to you. You are looking wonderful in the studio. So give us your studio take.
Thank you. I just want to add that the global remittance market size is valued at 16.2 billion US dollars, and that's from 2020. And the market is it's very slow and clunky, and we need innovation in the space. And just, David, I wanted to point to the quote that I think you were referencing from the report. They said they questioned whether stablecoins could offer lasting competitive advantages over rapidly developing, evolving digital payment services like digital ID, e-money, and mobile banking. And so it just feels to me like this is just another case of a traditional institution that's been around for a long time that's trying to poke holes into innovation because it wasn't in their roadmap. And it's really saddening for the people who need the innovation, right? The people who are sending this $16.2 billion of remittances back to countries where their friends and family can access money, and they need to do so in a cheap and effective way. And so it was upsetting, but Naomi, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, just exactly on that point, Jen. I mean, this is a Switzerland-based institution. It's 91 years old. I think you're absolutely right that all these innovations were not in their roadmap. They're not quite sure how to factor them all in. And it's an organization whose entire purpose is basically to support central banks' efforts to create banking and financial stability, through research and fostering cooperation with central banks on a range of issues. Like, their focus is all on the central banks. So it's interesting that they're talking about CBDCs, like central bank digital currencies, this is our purview, but then they're throwing stablecoins into there. I mean, it was interesting to me that they're kind of painting it all with the same brush. I would have thought that they'd be a lot more positive towards CBDCs, considering that their whole purpose is to kind of foster innovation in that direction with central banks. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just start putting out more reports that are against stablecoins in particular, which are a big threat to central banks and to their potential central bank digital currencies. But we'll find out where this goes. At the moment, it's just a bunch of reports that tend to be very vacuous and not say too much. But I'll hand this over to you, Zach. Some interesting news coming out of El Salvador.
Yeah, very interesting news and very well reported by our colleague Andres Engler out of South America. Andres was able to talk to a number of people, among some hundreds, who may have been the victim of identity thieves exploiting the Chivo wallet app setup in terms of getting President Bukele's Bitcoin airdrop. So what we're seeing here is some clever ways to hack this system and to reap the rewards of what was supposed to be a key way to onboard the people of El Salvador into this big old Bitcoin experiment. I think this stuff is really interesting, right? These are the challenges that one faces when we deal with, ostensibly free money in the crypto context. How do we verify that the people that this money is meant to reach, how do we verify that it reaches them in a safe way? So I think what we're seeing here is some flaws in that system. And we're also seeing, another story of crypto, right? When there's an incentive to do some clever hacks to get some otherwise free money, people are going to do that. And that's what we're seeing here with some pretty clever, well, maybe not so clever ways to foil the onboarding process. So I'm going to toss this to David. I thought this story was really interesting and we can go any number of ways with it. But David,
another just huge kudos to Andres on this one. It's an amazing story. I recommend everybody read it all the way through. This was inevitable, and not just because of anything to do with the Chivo system in particular, but because of something that I want to connect to another hot topic, WorldCoin, which is when you do one-to-one real-world identity in a centralized way, you get weird things like, not weird, predictable things like this, where you have one identifier that's compromised. Pardon me. And once that identifier is compromised, you have all kinds of things that follow from it. So this is one of the reasons why we need something like decentralized identity to go in a more interesting or to go into a more maybe robust direction in terms of identifiers and how people manage their identities online. I'll just throw it right back to Zach.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on WorldCoin. So WorldCoin is the startup that was kind of roasted online as it emerged over the summer, what it was trying to do. We talked about it recently. They came out of stealth, big time VC backing, but they're one of these universal basic income projects that relies on scanning one's retinas with the orb to guarantee that you are indeed the person you claim to be when you're claiming your crypto airdrop. So I was quick to pop off a little joke, maybe Sam Altman should have sent Bukele an orb in this instance, and maybe some of these problems wouldn't have emerged. That's not to say that other problems wouldn't have also emerged with this system. But it is interesting to see these systems grapple with the realities of people looking to game them. So I'm going to toss this to Naomi. I really want Naomi's thoughts on the matter. What's going on here? What is this story about?
I mean, I think that a lot of times when governments roll out new technology, and you look at anytime the government creates a new website and they spend like $7 billion on a website that could have taken someone, 30 minutes to code up. Like I've had my friend Chris Pacia, there was some website recently that the government spent like exorbitant sums of money putting together. And so he made a video that got millions of views where he literally just coded it up like over a weekend. It was like, why did this cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and ended up not working? And that's the problem, is you have these agencies that just pour money into things that they don't understand, and they create these contracts with people. And, there's so many bugs that could happen in software. And I think that, especially in the case of El Salvador, they just rolled this out so quickly. They just went full steam ahead, and now this Chivo wallet's come out, it's had endless issues. And it's like, I mean, when you're dealing with people's money, this isn't just some website that you could throw out and, maybe it's okay if it's not 100%. But if you're dealing with people's money that, that they have to even be KYC'd to access. And so those funds are now tied to where those funds go is tied to a person. Like, this gets really serious. You want this technology to be pretty secure before you launch it. And it just seems like so many governments don't understand this when they're like, nope, it's on our roadmap, got to get this thing going, get it out. It's like, oh, maybe you want to go a little bit slower, make sure it's a bit more airtight. But Zach, I'll throw it to you.
I just wanted to say, the mechanism that we're talking about, like the crazy level of, sophistication or not that was used to exploit this onboarding system. We're talking about sort of facial recognition. And one user, Andres, was able to speak with one of those users. They were able to sort of fool the onboarding process by putting their phone to a poster on their wall, which was of Sarah Connor from the Terminator. And by scanning Sarah Connor from the Terminator, he was able to get to claim that reward for someone who was certainly not Linda Hamilton. So that's what we're talking about here, and we're talking about sort of the gaps in facial recognition technology. But Jen, I want to throw this to you because $30 in Bitcoin is not insignificant for a wide swath of the Salvadoran population. So I think at stake here is again people's livelihoods. So I'm going to toss that to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, so I remember when we were talking about WorldCoin, I think last week, I was like, but why would we need an orb to scan people's retinas? And here we are with the exact reason why. I also wanted to add that person who scanned the poster with Sarah Connor, they were setting up an account for their grandma. So let's just be very clear. There was not a lot of resemblance here. I think there was someone else in the story who took a photo of a mug, and that worked as the photo recognition. And to Naomi, to your point, I think this just moved so quickly that there were no checks and balances in place. And Zach, when we're talking about livelihoods, so now people whose identities have been stolen, their $30 of Bitcoin have been redeemed. They don't have that. There was someone else, I think she's a media personality that was referenced in the article. She tried to get her account back. There was not a lot of support over the phone. She had to physically go into a branch. And while she did get the account back, the money was gone forever. And so I think the whole goal of the project is lost here because of a faulty verification system that could have been fixed if we didn't move so quickly to implement this that was meant to be this product that was meant to be for the people. So again, just another sad day for this project. But hopefully we can learn to move forward and get those globes or orbs out, scanning people's retinas. And I don't know what kind of issues we'll see with that, but at least it won't be this one.
Yeah, just a final word there. I'll throw it to you, Zach. But this is what happens when you're spending taxpayer money to cover all this. There's no accountability, and it's not actually coming out of your own pocket or your own business's pocket. And so I'm not sure they really mind that all of this money is going missing, because they can always just get it back in other means. But my little bit of a rant there, and I'll throw it back to Zach.
All right, cool. We're going to go to China. We're going to talk about whether or not China can self-regulate NFTs by changing the letters involved in NFTs. All right, stick with us. We'll get back to that after the break. It's The Hash. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good Monday. All right.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. The CoinDesk DeFi Index is our latest product and provides insight and exposure into decentralized finance. Our indexes are key for investors looking to access and understand crypto markets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index is the best tool for a diversified approach to this compelling new category of digital assets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index, measuring the investable DeFi market.
Hello and welcome back to The Hash, where we bring you the latest and greatest in crypto and culture. So we are heading off to China, where tech giants Ant Group, Tencent, and JD.com have signed the NFT Self-Regulation Convention after increasing government pressure over NFTs. So surprise, surprise, the Digital Culture and Creative Industry Self-Regulation Convention is made up of 11 principles, including ending virtual currencies and enabling the real economy. So there's a lot to unpack here. Naomi, I'm going to kick this off to you. Tell me about your initial thoughts on this convention.
I mean, there's so much in here. I'm actually going to throw this on to Zach for his take, because there's a lot going on there, and I'm not sure that I fully what's the word collected it all. But Zach, soaked in. Yeah.
I'm gonna botch a William Shakespeare quotation, and I'm gonna say
Excellent.
"A rose by any other name, something something." I think that was the
Would
gist of
smell
that
sweet.
one. But there it is. The theater background coming in handy. Thank you, Naomi. I appreciate you doing that. So an NFT by any other name, will it be still seen as an NFT that fosters rampant market speculation among the Chinese citizenry? I don't know. They're trying to change this thing to like digital collectibles. I've seen some other letters thrown out there as a way to appease the regulatory crackdown around these things, right? Because these big companies, they want to play in this space. They say, hey, this is a great way to provide a little bit of digital ownership for our users. And hey, our users are probably interested in this thing already. But in the meantime, there's a big crypto crackdown in China that is going to upset people. So they're trying to figure this out. It's going to be interesting to see what they come to. It seems like a bit, I don't know. It seems like a bit odd. Like I'm not exactly optimistic that this sort of slapdash rebrand is going to help these companies achieve the goals that they want to achieve in this geography that they serve. But it is interesting to see companies of this size scrambling to control the narrative and potentially get this stuff. I'm not going to call them NFTs. Get this stuff. They can just call it stuff. Digital stuff. Digital things.
Digital things.
The things. They can get the things to their customers. No big deal. So that to me is what's interesting about this. And I am going to kick it back to my Shakespeare knowing friend, Naomi.
Yes, I enter pithy Shakespeare quote to receive that, Kat. One thing I will say is that this isn't the first time I've seen kind of weird regulatory pushback happen in China. Like in the past, when you've had like different chat apps that have enabled cryptocurrency purchases, like I remember seeing tweet threads from years ago. I think like maybe CZ was involved. Don't hold me to that, but there were a bunch of people who were like, hey, can I buy crypto through XYZ chat app? And then people were like, no, absolutely not, because it is banned in China. And then a bunch of users saying, actually, I buy it through there all the time. You absolutely can. And then said CEO responding again and saying, yes, but we do not speak about that. Do not say such things out loud. So there's this kind of like, as long as we don't acknowledge it, it's not happening culture there. And I think that as long as publicly companies are seeming to toe the line and paying respect to whatever, proclamations the Communist Party have put forth, it seems that sometimes they can get away with a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if simply changing the name NFT to digital collectible becomes this sneaky way that they can avoid any pushback, because they're not involved with crypto, they're involved with digital collectibles, which also use blockchain technology and different, underlying coins to fuel the ecosystem, but they're completely different to cryptocurrency. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this stuff works for at least a long time until said company annoys the government in another way, in which case the government will turn around and say, all this time you've been betraying us and going against us. We will come down on you harder. So we'll see what happens there. But there have been some weird things happening regarding regulation. I'll throw to you though, David.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Naomi. And I think your attribution on that Twitter exchange is correct. But yeah, the idea of like naming and what you call something is actually incredibly important in China. There is a lot of good writing going on about how Xi Jinping is running the government there, and there's a lot of rhetorical work that goes into being an upstanding member of Chinese society these days. And I would almost say that like the subtitle to our article on this, which is something about these companies appeasing regulators, doesn't even really hit the mark, because the line between who's the company and who's the regulator in China right now is getting fuzzier and fuzzier. I mean, Ant Group is on this list, and Ant Group was, formerly Jack Ma's company until they decided to just take it away from him. So he's gone, and they'll do whatever they want. I will say, one of the interesting things about this, they signed a 10-point agreement, and one of the points is that a commitment to ending virtual currency. And that might be another point where there's like a terminology thing going on. But I do think it highlights that, on the other hand, to your point, Naomi, there is a seriousness to this in terms of their fear about speculation in particular. So it remains to be seen, but there is definitely some seriousness to this. Jen, do you want to chime in?
I think I saw Zach's hand up, but I could have been incorrect. Zach, did you have your hand up?
I did. I cannot tell a lie. I was just going to say there is something to be said for flying under the radar. And I think we're seeing a lot of these stories lately where flying under the radar really worked up until now. And then all of a sudden you're dealing with a $3 trillion asset class and you can no longer fly under the radar. So this to me is one of those stories flavored through the lens of China crypto crackdown. But absolutely, across the industry right now, there's a lot of things that are suddenly on the radar, and we're seeing a lot of interesting things come of that. So that was all I want to say. Jen, last thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll kick it off to David. You've both David and Zach, you've made so much sense out of this to me, but I think changing it to digital collectibles doesn't take away what's actually happening, and I just see regulators coming for that a little bit further down the line. I mean, I don't have the historical context, David, like you do, but how likely is it, I know we have to move on, but maybe before you introduce your next topic, how likely is it that regulators come after these digital collectibles in months from now?
Well, again, I think Naomi hit it right on the head. Like the nice thing for the Chinese government about something like this is that you can say, like, here's a rule and you should follow the rule, but it's a rule about how you frame things. And we decide whether you're actually following the rule or not. And then we'll do what we want based on whether we like you. I mean, it's not a country subject to the rule of law, basically, is what it boils down to at the end of the day. And speaking of which, actually not a bad transition, we had a bit of news this morning. I believe the outages were this morning. Binance halted withdrawals for a few brief periods. And we don't know very much about this right now. They claimed that it was to help clear a backlog, which I take at face value, but it still is interesting. I think mostly from kind of a historical perspective and a couple of other things. But Zach, you're kind of a technicals guy. Why does this matter? Why does it matter if Binance halts withdrawals for 25 minutes? It doesn't seem like a big deal, right?
It doesn't seem like a big deal, but crypto moves fast. Windows of opportunity close in 25 minutes very often in this space. So for the users who were impacted by that, that certainly matters. I mean, it may or may not, shake their confidence in a crypto exchange that has long been among the top dogs in the industry. But it's not something it's also not something we don't ever see, right? A lot of exchanges, a lot of centralized exchanges, for whatever reason, have periods of being down. And I think this is something that, we see typically, like in times of volatility. I'm not sure if that was related to what happened here, but it's something that, centralized exchanges still absolutely suffer from on occasion. And it's something that, as more people enter the space and typically turn to the sort of centralized exchanges first before kind of like maybe porting over to the world of decentralized exchanges and DeFi, I think it's going to be something that's going to test these companies quite a bit, right? We're seeing a ton of advertising, be it crypto.com, FTX, you name it, who are trying to onboard the next billion users of the crypto. That can be taxing for some of these systems at these firms. So that to me is what's going on here. Again, I don't know much of the facts about what really caused this, but it's something that we see not infrequently as things pick up in the space.
Yeah, and just to drill down a little bit on what you said about opportunities. I'm not personally a trader, but those people who want to, for example, use ETH that they have on Binance to buy something that is being offered, stuff gets snapped up. The market is very hot, so this really does have an impact on the exchange's reputation with people who are professionals or serious amateurs. Naomi, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting how far we've come, because crypto was this really novel experiment where the markets never close and you could trade 24/7. And we were so used to this archaic world where, after 5 p.m. on a Friday, you're going to wait 3 days, for that transfer to go through. Heaven forbid that maybe it's a long weekend as well. You got to wait longer. There are exorbitant wait times. There are all kinds of holidays that the market's shut down for. And so we were used to that system, and suddenly we got crypto where everything is always on and you could do anything at any time of the day. And it's like this luxury. And now to have this report about it was closed for 25 minutes, stop the clock. So I just think that it's pretty interesting to see this as being like a big thing, because crypto really does spoil us. It's so much better than the existing model where there are so many restrictions to when, what you can't do. But it is also interesting. I mean, I think both of you mentioned the context of this, which makes people kind of take pause. Yes, we take at face value that obviously there's a backlog and there's huge demand for crypto right now. So it makes sense that maybe they'll have some trouble, getting that crypto for people, make sure that they have it on hand so that they can give it out to people. But the history of this is kind of around, we know Mt. Gox has had issues around this. There've been all kinds of Quadriga, scandals, all these things around exchanges where suddenly if there's a pause that was unscheduled, the whole crypto community kind of holds their breath for a moment to figure out whether this is just another Mark Karpellis, everything's fine and we're about to reopen all of the withdrawals again really soon, or, whether it is literally just there's just a backlog, So it seems it was just a backlog. It didn't stop the crypto community from just holding their breath in anticipation for that moment. But Zach, I'll throw it back to you and you can close us out.
Can I make one last comment?
You can make one last comment. Yeah.
So, this is particularly relevant, Naomi. You're bringing up the panic, and it's particularly relevant for Binance because, it is one of these stateless organizations that probably faces a lot of complexity in their banking relationships. So this was a pause on the crypto side, but in a lot of previous cases, these pauses have been because there has been a serious disruption to fiat banking relationships. And that's often, death sentence might be a slightly strong term, but in a lot of cases, that's what it has led to with exchanges, is a collapse. So that's the worst case scenario. I'm not saying that's at all what's going on with Binance, but it's the reason that people are so on edge about these kinds of things.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
All righty, let's wrap it up, folks. That's the end of the hash for Monday. We will be back on Tuesday. I am Zach Seward. That is David Morris, Jen Sanasi, and Naomi Rockwell.
Back on Wednesday.
Oh, we're doing our civic duty tomorrow. We're voting. Yeah, CoinDesk has a day off tomorrow. Sorry, Jen. You don't get that in Canada, do you? But you're in the U.S. Oh my goodness. Anyway, we're all. This is crazy. I don't know what to do right now. All my Canada jokes are done. This is nuts. Okay, well, we're not here tomorrow, but it's going to be good, and we'll see you on Wednesday. I'm Zach again. David, Jen, Naomi. Thanks for picking me up, Control. Appreciate you. All right, we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great one.
Thanks, everybody.
And go get them. Woo! Woo!